if you're looking for systemic change in your company, you're looking for a framework.
Shooting off the hip or just kind of wild, wild west works when you're very tiny, but at the end of the day, it's chaotic, and it gets chaotic very quickly.
Hi, my name is Mariam Treystman, and this is Larry Treystman from the Home Health Consultant, and we're here to talk about consultant red flags. So agencies look for consultants for a variety of reasons. Some of those are for passing surveys, to file various required paperwork to the state or federal authorities, starting new agencies, always a reason to use a consultant, sometimes for various billing inquiries or general, in our case, general compliance issues. When you're looking for a consultant, there are a few red flags to try to understand when somebody is a professional or maybe just starting out, if they're 100% truthful, and if they have the experience to do the job. So we're going to jump into the different kinds of consultants there are, but generally this is going to be based on what the agency needs. Typically, consultants will specialize in a specific area. So people who are doing enrollments, for example, who help people start new companies, will typically focus just on enrollments. People who help with billing issues and things like that will usually just focus on billing. In our case, in the Home Health Consultant, we help with administrative compliance and other types of compliance. And we try to stick to active agencies, small to medium, that do compliance. And so depending on your needs, there's probably a consultant out there for you. When you're looking for a consultant, the best thing to do is to pretty much explain what you need and try to suss out the expertise level, the professionalism, and things like that. So here are a couple of red flags to look for that we've found typically through our decades of experience.
So I'll give you some experiences that over the past few years that I found when, for example, when people come to us and they come to us for whatever reason, they're like, I'm the owner of this agency, and we're like, actually you're not the owner. And turns out when they thought that they did a change of location or change of ownership or whatever, it actually was never reported. Whoever they used in the past did, for example, might have just filed a statement of information and nothing more. So one of the things that I personally would look for is, did you sign anything? Was it sent? How do you know it was sent? Is there a tracking? Just be a little bit more involved to know, like, hey, this is actually what's involved. It's a lot more involved than just having somebody tell you, yeah, it's all done.
So one big kind of red flag to look for to avoid this kind of situation is if you go to a consultant for a specific need and it seems like that's their niche. Like there are some consultants that try to do it all, and that's its own red flag, but
correct.
If you go to somebody and they have some kind of niche, but then you have other needs and they go, yeah, we kind of do that too. Yeah. And it just kind of feels like it's an add-on or it's a yes man response. That's a really good way to avoid the kind of situation that Larry was talking about, where that usually happens when an agency will go to a consultant for a specific thing, like help me prep my survey or, whatever thing, something like that. And then in that process, they discover that, let's say, some mandatory paperwork wasn't filed, and then the consultant takes it on, but doesn't have maybe the experience or the resources to do those tasks. And so it just sits there for a long time until it's kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
One way to avoid this issue is to, like Larry said, make sure you're following up on statuses, trackers, trying to get some kind of proof of process, things like that.
Yeah, to your point, as far as like having a consultant niche down, there are a lot of clients out there who typically like a one-stop shop. They like, I like one person to go to, and I understand that it actually sounds really nice.
Yeah, we get it.
To have one company to go to.
Right.
And in rare cases, it does work. But a lot of times, if everyone does everything, usually not
Nothing
everything
gets done.
is done right.
Right.
We're actually part of. This is a learning lesson for us because a few years back we that was our at least concept, and we learned
Our
fairly
business model.
fairly quickly. You know, we need to really niche down because when we touched everything, it all went, but when you niche down, you can actually do a much better job, and the quality goes through the roof.
Yeah, because you really can focus on the things you're good at and really hone in on your expertise. And so when you have somebody that does it all, maybe they're fantastic and maybe they do it all really well, but in a lot of cases, there could be things that just fall in between the cracks. One other fun little way to understand, to kind of catch a red flag is when you speak to a professional versus somebody who might be just starting out. I guess you have to be maybe somewhat of a professional to catch this thing, but the people who just start out as consultants, they kind of tend to grasp on like silly concepts for like sensationalism a little bit. And so what we've noticed is a lot of like brand new consultants, like in their first year, just talk a lot about HIPAA. And like it's every other word is HIPAA, and it's funny. So just a little disclaimer about HIPAA. HIPAA is a very, very important piece of legislation that was passed during the Clinton era, I believe 92 or 97, something like that. And what HIPAA did was really protected patients' privacy. Before that, I actually remember a time before HIPAA was implemented, and it's funny because like not funny, it was kind of heartbreaking. Like a patient could have gotten diagnosed with like, let's say, some late stage cancer, and then by the time they came home from the doctor's office would have voicemails like trying to sell them this or that treatment or whatever. It was just like a big invasion of privacy. So HIPAA created privacy standards requiring healthcare companies to really secure their information, not put steep fines on people just unethically selling information, just things like that. So HIPAA was groundbreaking and very vital piece of legislation, and there's no discounting its importance. However, unless you're going specifically to an IT consultant for IT purposes, even in the healthcare space or whatever, or unless you're going for that, you're probably not talking about HIPAA much with your consultant, because the day-to-day stuff that you're doing to prevent HIPAA is like having disclaimers on your fax cover sheet, on your emails, that if you are not the intended recipient, please discard. It's shredding your documents, things like that, but it's not really stuff that touches your day-to-day that you would need consulting for.
Yeah, it's more process-based, it's more setup-based and things like that. But when a consultant or anyone kind of keeps throwing that word around, and this is actually coming from personal experience where we had a consultant with another customer come out and just kept throwing that word around where they're like, well, this is not HIPAA compliant. And I'm like, are you sure you know what that means?
Yeah. I don't think it means what you think it means.
It was completely unrelated. And it was one of those things where like, okay, I get it. You're just trying to make yourself look more professional while putting others down. But at the end of the day, when you keep throwing that word around, it's just like, all right, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
One of the real kind of touch factors on this and why it's not really relevant in many consulting conversations, especially at some kind of consultation moment, like if you're like first meeting someone, they're just like throwing HIPAA left and right, is that it's now 30 years that HIPAA has been enacted, and it's like ingrained in the fiber of healthcare. Most people are not, it's like day one stuff. And it's also things that have become natural in how people function. It's all, of course you're taking specific precautions, but those are day one precautions. Those are not like you're active and you need help with HIPAA.
Talk about higher level stuff. Talk about like actual
deficiencies and processes
and tangible items and things like that. So huge red flag, definitely, because you throw that word around, or do you really know what you're doing?
Yeah, and maybe last thing for this is maybe in enterprise level companies, there's more conversation around HIPAA in the sense of IT security and how to manage information on like large scale. but that's not who we're dealing with. So, and probably not who you're dealing with. So,
Yeah.
so another kind of rolling off of that same point, a very similar kind of concept here is when a consultant asks to review charts or other documentation that's already passed a survey and then has some kind of like feedback. The only time this is acceptable is if you are hiring someone to review your things for like ADR prep, where maybe it's past survey, but there's other factors that we're looking for.
Yeah.
But in every case that we've encountered this, it's not that. It hasn't been that. It's just someone trying to like prove their expertise.
Yeah. So they show them like how great they are by putting others down. It's unfortunately, I don't think this is specific to this industry. I've seen it a lot with attorneys. I've seen it a lot with all sorts of different industries where when somebody actually tries to look more professional, they love to talk their competitors down. So yeah, if they're going to ask for a chart that's past a survey, what is the point of that? Like, the surveyor passed it. Why would you need to review it afterwards and say anything negative?
Yeah, like review the chart that didn't pass the survey. So
yeah, so that's a red flag. If they ask for that, what are they really looking for and why?
The next red flag that I feel really strongly about, and that's not to say that this is 100% indicative of problems, but it's like 99% indicative of problems, is if there's no office, team, or somewhere to call outside of the person's cell phone. Like, that is, to me, that would be my biggest red flag.
Correct. It might work well with somebody just starting out and they work for you full time and they come to your office, but that's not really realistic. The amount of work it actually takes is too much, and the more work they take, the actual work in the background will the quality will be felt. Yeah.
Without a team. Consulting for healthcare can be rough. And so one way to avoid this is you want to try to meet the consultant at their office. A lot of people will push for a consultant to come to their office, maybe to review documentation or, whatever reason. Typically, if a consultant is willing to come to your office, they're either not that busy, or they expect some high price tag for this.
And that's perfectly fine
Totally fine.
If you pay them their fee. But if they're going off basic market rates and actually are coming to your office, something's not adding up.
And like just for a free consult.
Something's not adding up because it's a lot of work and something's off.
Even especially for the consultation, like, so when we were starting out 150 years ago or whenever, I did do in-office appointments, and Larry did do in-office appointments. Not to be like mean or whatever or pompous, but
sorry, it wasn't 150 years ago because it was right before HIPAA. So
that's right.
so maybe 40 years ago.
But yeah, so like today you probably can't get us to an office just to like explain an admin compliance program or something, because we're busy and we have a lot of things to do, and we don't travel for consults, and to pay our fee to travel for a consult is silly too. It's silly for us and for people. And so if you have a consultant who's just like down to come to your office in this way, it's a red flag in that, so are you like not busy? Meaning you don't have that much work, or like what's going on? Or you have work and you're neglecting, like how's the work getting done? Unless that person is like a sales rep.
What's the opportunity cost?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah.
So one big way to avoid this kind of problem of like, is there a team? Is there, what's the infrastructure, and really to get a sense of the person? Because it's easy to put on a nice suit or like a nice outfit and like go present yourself in a specific way. is to visit that person's office. The best thing you could do, even though it might be more convenient to ask for an in-your-office appointment, is to go to their place of work. If they're working in like some small, tiny hole in the wall with a hole in the wall, that speaks volumes about that person and
So
their work ethic.
I remember my old accountant's office, and I've had him for years, and it was that, right? And I didn't know any better. He was a good accountant for what he needed to do, but at the end of the day, when I actually went to a different accountant's office and saw, okay, well, this is a real operation. So it builds a lot of trust when you see something internal, and like if you have your processes, everything internally together, then I trust you to properly consult me, right? If you can't even have it internally together and just everything's a mess, then how can I possibly trust anything you say to help me if you can't help yourself?
Right. And that's not to say that a single person working as a consultant that might not have an infrastructure going won't be effective. That's not to say that somebody who might have remote staff and so they don't need this like giant space or whatever won't be effective. But these are just the red flags that we've seen along the way.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a single person can work wonders and be much better than a giant team. Right. Like there's all sorts of things, but as far as red flags, these are indicators that this might be an issue.
Right. One more kind of indicator in that sense is if the only way to communicate with that person is their cell phone number. Like, that's not to say true. That if they give you the cell phone number, that's an issue. No. But if there's no other way to contact them, there's no other phone number to call and nobody else to ask for.
Correct.
You are going to have hell with that person. And
Correct.
That's like 100%. That is like a 99%.
Yeah, it's most likely you'll never get a hold of them. Even if you do in the beginning, it's just a matter of time that you'll be very frustrated and nothing will move forward. And I don't know why that is. I mean, my assumption is people are just scared to teach others or whatever the reason. But at the end of the day, you have to have a process in place. You have to have a support staff. You have to have a team. Again, it's a lot of work, and without help, I don't know how you can possibly do any job at all.
Especially if that consultant is willing to come to your office and they're just only giving you the cell phone. Like run. Because here's why. It's not that this is some red flag indicative of like disorganization or whatever. Just on a basic level, if you're doing any job, right? Like you need time to do the job. They can't be their own receptionist and do the work.
I mean, how many calls do we get just for status, right? Like just that in itself would be overwhelming. That would be like 80% of their job is just answering status questions when you can't actually do anything to move things along and forward. Yeah, especially if you're like attending surveys and things like that as a consultant. If you're at a survey as a consultant, someone calls you for status, you're not answering that call. You might be at survey for 3 days. That person might have needed something really urgent. Like, who knows, right? Like, whatever the situation is. Yeah. But that consultant's not going to call you back until, like, after the workday, if, like, in a best case scenario, or literally, like, later that week or end of the week or next week. And so you really want to have, like, a team in the background that can answer a status call, answer these little things, and, kind of be attentive to your needs, especially if you're doing something around surveys or applications. Surveys and applications, you need someone to answer the phone that's not the only person doing the work. Yeah. And as far as status or all of those things, the other thing to actually look out for is, do you feel they have a system in place? Do they have notes? Do they know what happened? Is there structure in the background? You can usually feel that versus like, I have no idea what's going on. Let me call them. More of a I have a list, I have a log, I have a call log. All of these things show professionalism. Right. And there are like old school consultants who might not have robust tech systems and things like that. But all of these things, just like Larry mentioned, are indicators of somebody who is working on their business to provide a better service.
if you don't have any of those kinds of indicators that somebody is like actively trying to improve their services, keep up with the times, or like whatever, it could be a symptom of something greater in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on, I actually wanted to mention another, I don't want to say so much as a red flag as much as just clarity for people. And those are billers who call themselves consultants. I've noticed that's very common. The word consultant is thrown around a lot. And I don't know if there's anything specifically wrong with that, as much as like you just have to really understand who it is you're talking to and what their niche or specialty is. If they're a biller, really understand that they're a biller. Just because it says consulting, know what they actually do and don't do. So that's more for clarity purposes versus a red flag.
So the next red flag is if they're just kind of throwing a software at you and you have to DIY a lot of stuff. It's not so much a red flag as much as like, what are you trying to achieve, you know? So a lot of times when we're faced with sales situations, especially high pressure sales situations, especially sales situations around things like surveys, you can get talked into a lot of like this method or that method or whatever. If time considerations are important and also knowledge considerations are important, if you're looking for a consultant that holds your hand, be careful with someone who's just throwing a software at you. That's where like expectation mismatches can happen, and ultimately both parties are going to leave unsatisfied. So
can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by that?
I guess it's more like you really want to match needs and services and things like and expectations. And so a lot of times, like especially in the administrative compliance section, we'll see people who just really are lost in how to manage and maintain it. Like sometimes people are really good at getting to compliance, but then not good at maintaining the compliance. The problem with getting to compliance and then not maintaining it is that when you get to compliance, you're compliant for that minute. And the next minute, you're no longer compliant because the whole compliance game is maintenance. And so you really want to be careful when the compliance comes via just a software or unless you are already a professional and really know how to manage this stuff, because the software is not going to answer your question. The software is not going to tell you how to train your staff, whatever the thing is. That's not to say that it's bad to have a software, but if you're going for just the software, then you have to be the level of knowledge, expertise, resources, time, blah, 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 to be able to manage the compliance or to be able to, whatever within that software.
So if I'm hearing this right, you're pretty much just saying when you hear a consultant throw a software at you, that there needs to be a clear indication that this is just a software versus a consultant, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a consultant, let them not hide under the
behind a software.
The concept of a consultant, but actually they're just pushing a software.
Right.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with that. Like if you're selling a software, don't call yourself a consultant.
Right.
Unless you're gonna consult.
Right. Like what's the service? And we are actually Larry and I are shocking news. Both Treystman were married and we're partners, and we are very aligned in our he's actually the leader of this, but in being tech forward and modern with the times. So he's like very big on this stuff. We're not against softwares, and actually we feel like softwares and SaaS company softwares are fantastic ways to go.
Yeah.
But with that attitude in place, we've done a lot of for our business have used a lot of softwares that are just softwares.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of work.
Well, yeah. I mean, to elaborate based on what you're saying, I'm a big believer in software, and software is a tool that needs to help your business move forward. And if it doesn't, then it's a pointless tool. So at the end of the day, softwares are definitely important. Just don't mix it up with a service. Those are two very different things. So if someone's selling you one thing and pretending to be the other, just understand the difference.
Those are the big red flags that I've noticed personally in my few years of consulting. Can you think of anything else?
At the end of the day, it's just more about communication. Just make sure you understand what's going on every step of the way. It's reasonable if they're busy. It's reasonable. All the things are reasonable.
Yeah.
We're not saying like they're not allowed to be busy. They're not allowed to do this. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of it is a gut feeling as well. Like,
Yep.
do they have their business together? Are they communicative? Do they have processes in place to answer your questions, to answer your status questions, to know where you are in the process, to understand timelines? And that's really all it is. Like, if they can't answer basic things, probably a red flag.
I actually have one anti-red flag. Is that a green flag? I don't know. Whatever they're called. So one little not green flag, but it may seem like a red flag, but could go either way. I'll give this to you as a story. So a long time ago, we were swamped with some work, but we were hell-bent on not letting it like affect time frames and just things like that, like not letting our customer base feel it pretty much. And so us and some of the members of our like management team, we were like very just night and day in the office, like 24/7, like literally all-nighters all the time, stuff like that. Well, we would do the all-nighter, and then like at 10 a.m. or whatever, someone would come for an appointment. And then we looked like people who just did an all-nighter. We had our hair messy. It was just not a good look, not a great look. Be careful in distinguishing things that are superficial indicators of success versus actual indicators of success. It's much more indicative that you have like someone that can answer a phone that's not you than that like you're wearing sweats. Because maybe you just did like 2 all-nighters in a row to make sure you're hitting app deadlines that are like coming every day, things like that.
Yeah. Fun times.
Yeah,
Fun
oh
times.
my God.
Yeah. Fortunately, we have a very large team now to support that. But in those earlier days, yeah, there was a lot of work put in day and night, and yeah, I don't fully miss those days, but there were fun times with that as well.
It's the part of the movie where everyone's working,
Yeah. As far as red flags are concerned, and let's talk about pricing. I don't know if there's necessarily a specific red flag. I will tell you that somebody who's been in the industry, and if you shop around, you'll understand that whatever service you're getting should be within a specific range of whatever that specific service is. Now, and I've noticed this also outside of consulting, especially like if you deal with a contractor, you'll have like the majority deal with like a specific range, give or take of, whatever the percentage is. And then some people are just like way out on the left field where they just throw a number out. If somebody throws a number out, like...
You mean high or low?
Both. Like if it's just absurdly high, it's like, do you understand like what the market is? Are you really in the know?
Justify the cost.
Yeah. Or if you just flat out throw a very low number, I would say the same thing. And at the end of the day, the whole you get what you pay for usually is correct.
Yeah.
In most cases. There are a lot of factors. So if they do throw a low number out, maybe they're new coming up. Like and
that's not to say they're bad.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that's a red flag, but just understand whatever the market rates are for whatever specific service you're getting. And if it's just a small percentage up or down, they know what they're doing. That's one of the things that's proper.
Another kind of indicator of like a price that's too high could be that you're still getting the same service as everything else, but now there's middle salespeople in between.
Correct.
And
yeah.
that's usually a big reason.
That's a pretty good that's a pretty good red flag. We have noticed a lot of quote unquote consultants who are really just middlemen that bloat the price. And there's actually one more example. I've seen some prices that are so obnoxious, like double the price of anyone else, and that's just a person who is just busy and just says like, you know what, if I'll take it
Whoever
for
pays this price, I'll
whoever
take them.
pays this price, I'll take him. Otherwise, just not worth my time.
Yep.
So we've seen that as well. But you know, at the end of the day, to be a professional business, you can't just throw numbers out there. It has to be like,
Yeah, pricing is a business strategy. So part of this is why this wasn't included in our actual list of red flags, kind of like Larry said, like as a adjacent red flag category, is because somebody might be double the cost and worth every penny. It's hard to put a blanket statement on this stuff.
yeah,
Usually, if they're super super cheap, then that really is that I would say that's a red flag. That means either inexperience or low quality or desperate something or whatever. So I wouldn't go with the super super like cheapest of the cheap by a lot. We're not talking a couple of percentages, right? Like it's like
yeah,
half price of everybody
yeah.
else.
So something's off. So at the end of the day, it's just one more thing to look out for. It's one more thing when you're interviewing and shopping around to understand like, does this fall within the norms? And if it doesn't, ask yourself why. Look into it. Maybe it's an issue, maybe it's not. But at the end of the day, just one more piece to look into. Not specifically, don't specifically go shopping around for the cheapest, or don't specifically go shopping around for the most expensive because, you know, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. That's not really the case. At the end of the day, it's just an indicator, another factor to look at with everything else.
Yeah, and in home health and hospice specifically, the consultant is consequential. It's a consequential decision, and so when Larry says like you get what you pay for, it's like 10x in this industry. If your app doesn't go through after a year of pending, and then you get a survey and then they see that there's no app filed, you know, things like that, like your surveys can just fail horribly if like you get like weird compliance consulting, like immediate jeopardy situations can arise. There's so many like really weird consequences of this stuff that you really want to do your best to find the right consultant. So how to find the right consultant for you? So the first thing that I would say is you want to like the person. You don't have to love them, but you don't want to be annoyed by them and you don't want to hate them. It's just going to be like a weird relationship. So if you get bad vibes, just
Yeah.
unless you have no other choice, I would shop more.
Yeah, so we actually do this when we interview for a new hire. The first thing we look for is core values. Do they fit our team? Do they fit the vibe of the office? And at the end of the day, it's a gut feeling, right? Like, do you work well with this person? Do you trust this person? Just look at the various factors. And at the end of the day, you're married to this person, you know.
Yeah, for the project.
For the project, for the work. So you want to be able to get along with them. You want to be able to trust them. You want to be able to, you know, understand and communicate with them.
Yeah. And so you really want to get really clear on what is it that you're looking for here.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about clarity and just having a proper communication with the consultant. From my perspective, I have a detailed conversation with the client or prospective client, and really understand what their needs are. If we're the right vendor for them, because at the end of the day, we might not be a good fit for you. You might not be a good fit for us, or we might be great for each other. But clarity is a key factor here to really understand what is it that you're looking for and can we actually help you. Is this something we do? Is this something we have to research? Because if it is, then at the end of the day, maybe somebody else actually knows better than we do. So yeah, it's just, you know, not going around things and just be a little bit more direct. And at the end of the day, it's, you know, I'm a big believer in trust and transparency.
The next thing you should really do is try to get to some kind of results from that person, meaning like what do results look like? Like what's the end goal here, and what does an end goal look like with you? This goes back to, we have a different episode about survey prep versus survey readiness. if you're looking for example, compliance maintenance, then you don't want to go to the person that gets you ready for the survey and then drops off.
Yeah.
Whereas if all I mean, obviously this is not our recommendation, but if all you're looking for is just to pass that survey or whatever,
We're not the right fit.
maybe we're not the right? Like someone who's going to be like in your life every month, every quarter, whatever, managing compliance and helping you manage your compliance, then probably we're not the right fit. If you're looking for application filing, maybe don't go to your biller. If you're
who calls themselves a consultant.
right, like especially when we were first starting out a million years ago, people would ask us, "Do you do this? Do you do that?" We would just say yes to anything. Yeah, we do it. Yeah, we do it, and then we would research and see if we could really do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the strategy in the very beginning was
Land grab.
We wanted to be
a land grab.
Well, we wanted to be a one-stop shop. We wanted
Right.
That was our strategy. It's like you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. We're that one-stop shop.
Anything you need, we can do it.
And we did. We did billing. We did all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you really niche down to a specific category, the quality, I mean, just literally breaks through the ceiling, right? Like at the end of the day, this is what you're good at. This is what you do, and versus doing everything adequately or subpar. When you actually do something specific, that's when this is what you're known for, and this is your stuff. Like I know, and I know I could sleep well at night. And I know this is being taken care of, and I go to somebody else where this is being taken care of. And yeah, that's kind of the pivot that we made a few years back, and it's really been working for us.
Yeah, the best thing we did in our business, for example, is we dropped billing. We dropped billing as a service.
Yep.
It was,
and that was painful.
It was so hard.
That was very painful. But at the end of the day, I mean, to be fully transparent, we have our own consultant, right? Like our own business consultant internally, and we have strategy sessions and we have different things, and we're like, all right, maybe niching down is the right strategy for us, and really understanding where are the next 10, 15 years going. What do we have to focus on? And all right, well, it's really definitely compliance.
Another really like kind of green flag of a good consultant, and this is actually after like...
Is it green or beige?
Green. After, being in just general business for like a long time, I recently came to this conclusion, like in the past year, the best kind of consultant that you can get for your business is someone who's going to implement a framework.
Correct.
There is nothing for me, maybe for you, better than that. Unless you are going for like a single service, like I need to file this app to change my administrator or, whatever, something specific. If you're looking for systemic change in your company, you're looking for a framework. You're not looking for someone who's going to off the cuff give you some advice or whatever. That's my biggest green flag for consulting general business.
I mean, I fully agree. A framework is kind of like the skeleton of your body. It's the studs of the house and everything. I mean,
it's the proven process.
The frame of the house, yeah. And we should be able to elaborate more on that on a different episode, and the complete importance of it. But yeah, like just going off the, shooting off the hip or just kind of wild, wild west works when you're very tiny. But at the end of the day, it's chaotic, and it gets chaotic very quickly because starting something is one thing, maintaining is very different, and then all you're doing is just putting out fires and issues daily, and before you know it, it's chaos. So having a proper framework, proper policies is extremely important. That's actually one of the things you might want to look for when you are researching a consultant. Do they have a framework, or is it just kind of like they're just all over the place and whatever comes their way? So yeah, and I think we should probably elaborate a lot more on that because that's it's a whole topic in itself.
Yeah. Another green flag, and like all the green flags are just like the opposite of the red flags. Another green flag is there's a team. Go with the guy with the team. He'll answer your calls. She'll answer your calls. Another green flag, this is a big one because I've seen my personal evolution in this, is if they're comfortable telling you they don't know something, it's not a crime to not know every detail of every nuance of every regulation from every state and every city and every like
Yeah.
it's impossible. If you have somebody that acts like they know everything about everything, that's just straight. I mean, that's not true. Like,
It's unlikely. Let's just say that, because there's a reason, like attorneys, for example, are licensed and have, passed their bar in a specific state. They're not going to know laws in every single state, right? Like, it's just way too much to know. So unless, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Unless they actually have a specific background in whatever they did where they can speak confidently, at the end of the day, just, double check.
yeah, like it's like your instinct is to want to just take all the business, right? But then at some point you start to go, I don't, but I can look into it. If you start hearing things like that, that's a confident person.
Yeah. And actually, speaking on that specific topic, I do get a lot of those conversations and
Yep.
calls. Can you do it in this state? Can you do it in that state? And right now, what I tell them is, you don't want us.
Yeah, get the guy in that state.
Once you have compliance needs, give us a call. We can do it in every state. But as far as starting a new agency in that specific state, sure, we can help you, but we're probably not the best company to help you. Somebody who specializes in that state, a local person. And I always tell people, there's a lot of consulting companies who kind of advertise that they work every single state. My advice to people is just find somebody local. It'll just save you a lot of money, time, and hassle.
Unless you're doing things like COP stuff or like things that are federal.
Yeah.
If you're looking for like something really specific to your state, go with the state guy.
Yeah.
Don't go with the
And
random.
yeah, as far as like for us, for example, right, on the compliance end, we do all 50 states because at the end of the day, it's all the same. Yeah.
Yep. So, of course, there are things that somebody who's working with us might interpret as a red flag, and those will come down to stylistic things. Like, for example, there's some people who want to do a handshake. Like, they want to see you face to face. They want to feel your vibes in person. It's like old school handshake, this, that. Versus, somebody who's like only remote or like things like that. So there might be like some stylistic things if you want to be the person who's like every 5 minutes calling the consultant on their cell phone, probably we're not it for you. Larry actually does take calls on his cell phone all day long. I don't anymore. I just can't get anything done when I do that. And so I think that could be maybe by someone interpreted, but we have like a 15-person team in the background who will take every single call, even if you call 100 times a day. So in that sense, I think that maybe that could be something. Do you have any red flags that people might look at us and go, that's a red flag?
Well, from a biased perspective, no, we're perfect.
Yeah, we're the best.
But I not so much a red flag as much as we're probably not the right fit for every account out there, right? Like for all the things that we're good at and not good at, right? Like we're not gonna go to your office. We're just not like not. I mean, there might be rare occasions where we might, and that's separate from obviously surveys or anything like that. But we've had so many calls where they're like, "Can you just come to my office and review our books?"
That's just not how our system works. Our system works differently.
Yeah, so that might be a red flag because maybe somebody wants a little bit more hand-holding and things like that.
Whereas our system is built in a specific framework. We've created a framework for ourselves that we apply to all of our customers that we've seen proven success in. That framework doesn't involve going and, spending time in people's offices. It has very processed out things. Yeah. Some people love the processed out stuff. Some people don't love it that much. Some people want to feel like they're getting some kind of custom solution. But from our perspective, this is a heavily regulated industry, and there's just not that much wiggle room with custom that much. The processes we've created around our services are proven, structured, efficient, and made for success. And they're also like made for the minimal time spent by both parties to achieve the maximal success. And so, of course, we have to sacrifice on some of these things that make people feel good, but don't result in any kind of better service.
But at the end of the day, I do believe in what we do. I do believe that we do an amazing job, and we're able to do that with the structure we have in place. Yep. So if it fits within the structure that fits for all parties, then great. And if it doesn't, sure, that's a red flag. Like, not even so much a red flag as much as this is just might not just be a good fit, and somebody else might be a better fit.
Right. So that's it for red flags for consultants in home health and hospice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe for more of our content. And again, this is Mariam Treystman from the Home Health Consultant. Thank you. Bye.